All right, welcome everyone to another deep dive
Yeah, deep dive.
with yours truly.
Always a pleasure.
Today we're going to be talking about, well, who else?
The Oracle of Omaha.
Warren Buffett.
That's right.
So we've got a ton of material to go through.
A lot of it from Alice Schroeder's biography.
The snowball, yeah.
The snowball, exactly.
So what are we trying to do today? I think our main goal is to really try to understand what makes Warren Buffett tick.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows the basic Warren Buffett story, but I think, we're going to try to go a little deeper, try to extract the real sort of nuggets that can really help illuminate how his mind works, the things that really shaped him as a person, but also as an investor.
Right, and I think, we have a lot of details, a lot of anecdotes, things that people might not have heard before, and that's what we really want to focus on.
For sure, like those key turning points, or even just those small details that reveal something essential about him, especially in those early years and then sort of his mid-career before he became, the Warren Buffett.
Legend, exactly.
Uh-huh.
Right, so I think that's what we're aiming for, to give people a shortcut to really understand, the inner workings of this financial legend.
Like, what can we learn from him?
Yeah.
Not just, oh, he bought this stock and that stock.
Right, more like what were the principles, what was the thinking behind it?
Exactly.
Okay, so to start with,
Yeah.
let's go back to, well, to beginning, right? His roots, his family.
Right back to Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah, Omaha, Nebraska, where his family actually has a pretty deep history.
They go back, to those pioneer settler days.
Yeah, pioneer settlers in Omaha. So, they were there from the very beginning.
Yeah, and even early on, it seems like there was this emphasis on education.
Right.
Like, his grandmother, Henrietta, really wanted her children to be the first in the family to graduate from college.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So that kind of, sets the tone a little bit, right?
Yeah, ambition.
This desire for something more.
Right, yeah. And also, everyone in the family had to work, right?
Yeah, there was that work ethic too.
At the family store, right?
At the family store. So we're talking Howard, his father, and all the siblings, pitching in, doing their part.
Right. And then Howard kind of went in a different direction, right? Into politics.
Yeah, he makes this move from the star to politics, which is, a pretty big shift.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different time, right? People maybe had more of that community focus.
Possibly, yeah, the sense of public service.
Right, right. Okay, so we have this background, but what about, the broader context?
Yeah.
He was born in 1930, right?
Yeah.
So his childhood was smack dab in the middle of
Oh, the Great Depression.
the Great Depression, exactly.
I mean, can you imagine
No, I
that
can't.
kind of economic
Yeah.
upheaval?
Yeah, and his dad had a business, right? He was trying to make sales during that time.
Yeah, and the biography really details how difficult it was for Howard
Oh, really?
just to keep things afloat,
Yeah.
to actually make sales, keep the business going. I mean, imagine the stress.
I can't even imagine the stress level.
That's almost impossible to imagine, right? And for a young Warren to be witnessing that,
Right, seeing his dad struggle, I mean, that must have had some kind of impact.
Oh, for sure. That kind of experience, that financial insecurity,
Right, it probably instilled some deep-seated.
financial caution, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense.
Right. And then you have the family dynamics.
Right, so let's talk about the family.
Because, from the book, it doesn't seem like the warmest, the most affectionate kind of family.
No, not at all.
No outward displays of affection,
Yeah.
like no saying I love you or tucking the kids in with a goodnight kiss.
That's so interesting.
Right. It's kind of striking, especially compared to his mother's public image.
Yeah, Layla, his mom.
Layla, yeah, she really cultivated this image of the perfect mother and wife, always proper, always put together.
Yeah, but the reality at home was clearly quite different.
That contrast is really fascinating, right? And the book mentions how she kind of curated her own history,
Yeah.
emphasizing certain narratives, especially those of sacrifice,
Oh, wow.
which makes you think, what was the emotional environment like behind closed doors? What was it like for Warren growing up in that kind of atmosphere?
Yeah, and do you think maybe the lack of, that kind of emotional affirmation,
At home, yeah.
could that have pushed him towards seeking more, um, how do I say this?
Objective.
Yeah, more objective measures of success, like, numbers and business achievements.
That's an interesting thought.
I mean, it's just speculation, but
But it makes sense, right? If you're
Yeah.
not getting that kind of emotional validation at home, maybe you seek it elsewhere.
in a different way. Yeah.
In a different way, exactly.
So, speaking of Warren as a child, the book has some great anecdotes about his his personality, his quirks,
Yeah.
even.
As a young boy, there were some signs.
Oh, yeah, and some pretty unusual interests for a kid.
Right, like this almost obsessive interest in details.
Yeah, like the nitty-gritty of things,
Yeah.
He wanted to know how things worked.
And he loved spending time with adults, really craved their attention.
Especially from his dad, Howard, right?
Especially from Howard. And there's that story about his 10th birthday.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
Instead of, asking for toys or games, he wanted a trip to the East Coast.
For his birthday?
Yeah, for his 10th birthday, and not just any trip, right? He had very specific destinations in mind.
Like what?
Okay, so he wanted to see the Scott Stamp and Coin Company,
Oh, wow.
the Lionel Train Company, and, the big one, the New York Stock Exchange.
No way. A 10-year-old wanting to see the stock exchange.
That's Warren Buffett for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, talk about an early indicator, right?
I mean, that's not just a passing interest.
No.
That's a deep-seated fascination with the world of finance and business.
Right, and it's not just that. There's also that anecdote about him skipping half a grade.
Oh, right, with his friend Stu.
Yeah, and their other friend, Bob Russell, he didn't skip.
Right, Bob stayed behind. And the interesting part is how Warren kind of kept those friendships separate.
So he's already compartmentalizing.
Yeah, it seems like it. Even at that young age, he's managing different parts of his life, different social dynamics.
That's really interesting.
It's like he understood, that certain people belong in certain spheres of his life.
Wow, okay, so we have this, kind of unique kid, clearly very bright. But how does he start, honing his business skills?
Well, the book mentions how even as a child, he had this real competitive streak, this desire to, beat the other guy.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And he and his uncles, they would engage in these little business ventures, like buying day-old food at a discount.
Yeah, like arbitrage almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this early rudimentary form of value investing.
Wow, so it's there from the very beginning.
It seems like it, right? This understanding that you buy something for less than it's worth.
Yeah, and you sell it for a profit.
Exactly. And it's not just about the money, it's about outsmarting the competition.
Right, being the one who sees the opportunity.
That's right.
And then when they moved to Washington, D.C., right?
When Howard was in Congress.
Yeah, Warren got a paper route.
Delivering the Washington Post.
And the Times-Herald, right?
Yeah, both of them.
So he's like a young teenager, right?
And he's managing everything, the route, the money.
The whole operation.
The whole operation. And even when he was sick, he still made sure those papers got delivered.
Oh, wow. So that dedication was already there.
That sense of responsibility.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then we have the legendary pinball machine business.
Oh, right, with his friend Don.
They hit a gold mine with those pinball machines.
Yeah, they were making good money.
Including this one challenging location, a barbershop.
Oh, yeah, in a rougher part of town, right.
Right. Not exactly a safe and easy place to do business.
But they made it work.
They made it work. And it shows, his willingness to take risks, to go into these unconventional ventures.
Yeah, and he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty,
Hey, dealing with, customers who would damage the machines or try to cheat the system.
Yeah, and that probably taught him a lot about, managing a business in the real world.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about the theory of finance.
No.
It was about managing cash flow, dealing with difficult situations, learning how to adapt.
Right. Those are valuable skills.
Invaluable.
Yeah. So we have this entrepreneurial kid, already showing signs of business savvy.
But then he goes to college, right? Wharton.
Right. Wharton, but he wasn't exactly thrilled with it at first.
No, he kind of sleepwalked through his freshman year.
Yeah, but then he took this one class that really sparked his interest.
Industry 101 with Professor Hockenberry.
And suddenly he was engaged.
He was hooked. And it wasn't just about, basic business principles.
Of specific industries, right?
Yeah, like textiles, steel, petroleum.
He could remember all those details, even years later.
Yeah, the book mentions how he would, recall specific facts and figures from that textbook.
So what was it about this class that resonated so much with him?
It seems like it was the practicality of it, the real-world application of economic principles.
He wanted to understand how these industries actually functioned.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts of it, the inner workings.
And that clearly fascinated him.
It ignited his intellectual curiosity.
Yeah, and then after Wharton, he transfers to Columbia.
Where he meets Benjamin Graham.
the legend himself.
The father of value investing.
Right, but what's interesting is that when he went back to Omaha after graduating
He felt like he wasn't getting the respect he deserved.
in the local investment community, right?
Yeah, like they didn't quite see his potential.
And that actually fueled his desire to go work for Graham in New York.
Yeah, like I'll show them.
I'll prove myself to the best.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
It's like this rejection actually propelled him forward.
Yeah, and it led him to the source, the fountainhead of value investing.
Benjamin Graham, the guru.
So he gets this job in New York, and he's finally working in the world of finance.
But his first experience as a stockbroker in Omaha wasn't exactly smooth sailing.
What happened?
Well, he had this issue with selling stocks that he didn't personally believe in or own.
He felt it was unethical.
Yeah, like he didn't want to recommend something that he wouldn't buy himself.
That's interesting.
It's like he had this inherent conflict of interest,
He wanted to be on the same side of the table as his clients.
Totally. Full transparency, full alignment.
That says a lot about his character, even back then.
Yeah, he wasn't just chasing commissions.
He was thinking about the long game, about building trust.
Right, and then we have this pivotal moment, this article he wrote.
The security I like best.
About Geico, yeah.
And this was for, a fairly obscure publication, right?
The Commercial and Financial Chronicle, not exactly a household name.
But this article, it caught the eye of Bill Rosenwald.
And led to a job offer at American Securities.
Wow, talk about a turning point.
Just from a single article.
It's amazing, right?
It shows the power of clear thinking, of articulating your ideas effectively.
Even if it's in a niche publication,
Someone somewhere is paying attention.
And that someone could change your life.
Totally.
So he's at American Securities, and there's this little anecdote about a trip to Las Vegas with Susie.
Oh, yeah, with Susie, his wife.
And he randomly runs into people from Omaha who had invested in the Flamingo Hotel.
What
Right?
are the
It's a
chances?
small world.
Right. And then Susie, she wins a jackpot.
Oh, yeah, but there was a problem, right?
She was underage.
So they almost didn't pay her.
Can you believe that?
And Warren, of course, he steps in, he argues on her behalf.
He wasn't going to let them get away with that.
It's just this little glimpse into their dynamic,
Yeah, and also it kind of shows that, Warren, he has this sense of fairness.
Right, even in a silly situation like
He
that.
was going to fight for what was right.
So let's talk about Susie, because it's clear that she played a huge role in his life.
An immense role.
The book even says that she literally saved his life.
Those are strong words,
She provided this unconditional love and support.
which he desperately needed.
He struggled with self-doubt.
Deep-seated self-doubt, a lot of it stemming from his relationship with his mother.
Yeah, that complicated relationship with Layla.
And Susie, she was the antidote,
She gave him the emotional foundation he needed.
to thrive, to believe in himself.
And to achieve what he did, it's amazing to think about.
The power of a supportive partner.
It can make all the difference.
It's foundational.
So in addition to Susie, he also forms this partnership with his dad.
Buffett and Buffett.
That's great.
It was a way to formalize their occasional joint stock purchases.
Right. So Howard put up the gap.
And Warren brought the ideas.
The labor, right?
Yeah, he did the research, the analysis.
It's an interesting dynamic,
The father and son working together
And it probably gave Warren some valuable experience.
in managing money, making decisions with real consequences.
Right. And then a few years later, he takes this big step. He starts his own partnership.
Buffett Associates, Ltd.
In 1956, right?
Yeah, and he modeled it after the Newman and Graham partnerships
So he's taking what he learned from the best.
and applying it to his own venture.
And he starts with family and friends, people who trust him.
That trust was paramount.
It was the foundation.
And he comes up with this very specific formula for his fees.
Taking half of any returns above a certain percentage.
So he's aligning his interests with his investors.
If they do well, he does exceptionally well.
That's right. It's a brilliant model.
And becomes his trademark,
That alignment of incentives.
It's a powerful concept.
And it really sets him apart.
So as his partnership starts doing well, he starts getting noticed, right?
He's making a name for himself.
And he has this encounter with Arthur Weisenberger.
Oh, the author of Investment Company.
Yeah, the book that Warren knew inside and out.
And they meet while Warren is still at Graham Newman.
And Weisenberger is so impressed that he starts referring clients to Warren.
Including Dr. Edwin Davis, a prominent urologist.
Wow, that's a pretty big endorsement.
It is. It shows that Warren is gaining recognition from some influential people.
And that his connection to Graham Newman is opening doors.
It's giving him access to a network.
opportunities.
Yeah, and then there's that story about his first board meeting at Sanborn Map.
Oh, right, where he proposes distributing some of the company's investments to the shareholders.
And the board, they're not exactly receptive.
No, they're very conservative, very much stuck in that Depression-era mindset.
They see money as a scarce commodity, something to be hoarded.
And smoking cigars at his expense, which just adds insult to injury.
That detail is classic, right?
Yeah.
It's hilarious, but it also highlights this clash of philosophies,
Between Warren's proactive, value-oriented approach,
and the board's passive, almost fearful way of thinking about money.
and it shows Warren's frustration with what he sees as inefficiency.
Right. He wants to put that money to work to generate returns.
He's already thinking like an owner, not just an investor.
So then the market takes a downturn, 1957 to 1960.
A real test for any investor,
And Warren's partnership, it weathers the storm.
relatively unscathed,
In fact, he uses it as an opportunity to buy stocks at bargain prices.
embodying Graham's famous principle.
Be fearful when others are greedy. That's right. And this period really solidifies his faith in value investing.
It proves that the strategy works even in tough times,
And it highlights his ability to remain calm and rational.
when everyone else is panicking.
So we've talked a lot about Warren, but we can't forget about his partner in crime,
Charlie Munger.
the dynamic duo.
And their early interactions are fascinating because they didn't always see eye to eye on investing. Yeah, Charlie, while he also started with those cigar butt companies, the undervalued ones.
He was more drawn to, great businesses.
Yeah, companies with strong management, strong brands.
He valued those intangible assets.
And that's a big influence on Warren.
It pushes him to think more long-term.
To consider the quality of the business, not just the price.
And we see this shift really clearly with his investment in American Express.
Oh, right, during that scandal.
Yeah, the market was tanking. Everyone was selling.
But Warren, he does his own research.
He goes out and talks to cardholders.
And he realizes that the brand loyalty is still there.
The goodwill is intact.
So he buys a huge stake in the company.
And it turns out to be a brilliant move,
A classic example of contrarian thinking.
going against the herd.
And it's interesting that this happens while his personal life is also in flux.
Right. His dad's health is declining, and he's stepping into a more leadership role in the family.
And Susie is starting to feel like they should be doing more with their wealth.
Oh, for the community.
Yeah, giving back, making a difference.
So it's a time of both professional and personal growth.
And transition.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then we get into the late 1960s, and Warren starts making moves to gain control of Berkshire Hathaway.
He sees the potential in this textile company.
Yeah, but it's not about the textiles, it's about the platform.
It's about having a vehicle for his investments,
Right, and he offers a premium for the outstanding shares,
consolidating his position.
setting the stage for what Berkshire will become.
And then, somewhat surprisingly, he decides to close down his partnership.
In 1969.
He feels like the market is too speculative, too frothy,
It's getting hard to find those truly undervalued opportunities.
and he doesn't want to compromise his principles.
So he returns the capital to his investors.
Even though some of them rely on those returns for their livelihood
It's a tough decision, but it shows his integrity.
and his commitment to his values.
Yeah, he's not going to chase returns at the expense of his principles.
But closing the partnership doesn't mean retirement.
No, he's still actively investing.
And he makes this interesting acquisition, See's Candies.
A departure from his usual deep value plays.
Yeah, the price seems high relative to the assets.
But he and Charlie, they see the value in the brand.
The reputation, the customer loyalty,
That intangible stuff.
and Charlie is a big advocate for this deal.
It's a turning point in their thinking,
They're starting to see the power of investing in quality businesses.
even if they come at a higher price.
So we see this evolution in his investment philosophy, but it's interesting to note that he also has, interests outside of finance.
Yeah, like politics.
He's a supporter of liberal Democrats,
Like George McGovern, Allard Lowenstein.
which sometimes put him at odds with his dad, who was a Republican.
Yeah, their political views didn't always align.
But it shows that Warren, he's thinking for himself.
He's not just following the family line,
He has his own convictions.
and those convictions extend to his local community,
Right, he gets involved with the Omaha Sun.
the local newspaper.
He's hands-on, helping with headlines, photo captions.
He even gets involved with this investigative piece.
Boys Town, America's wealthiest city,
It's not just about making money for him, it's about making a difference.
contributing to his community.
And that interest in media, it leads him to Katharine Graham.
And the Washington Post.
He sees that the Post is undervalued.
And he meets with Kay Graham during this printers union strike.
A challenging time for the company.
But he understands the business. He sees the potential,
And he offers a true partnership,
a long-term commitment.
which is key for Kay Graham.
So he makes this significant investment in the Post
Another example of seeing value where others don't.
and trusting in strong leadership.
And around the same time, he and Charlie are getting more involved with Wesco Financial.
They see an opportunity there,
But they face some resistance from the board.
especially from Maxine Peters.
But they eventually gain influence.
It's a sign of their growing reach
Their ability to identify value in different types of businesses.
and to navigate those complex boardroom dynamics.
Yeah, they're playing a bigger game now.
While all of this is happening, Susie's life is also changing.
She's becoming more independent,
Involved in community work,
engaging with a different social circle.
while Warren is still very much focused on business.
It's a natural evolution.
They're both growing as individuals.
But their bond remains strong.
And Warren, even
Yeah.
though he closed his partnership,
He's still investing.
particularly in media companies,
He can't stay away from the game.
it's in his blood.
And then comes a major crisis. Geico.
The company he's admired for so long.
It's on the verge of collapse.
The stock price has plummeted,
They made some bad underwriting decisions.
expanded too quickly.
It's a real mess.
But Warren, he sees an opportunity.
He believes in the underlying business,
He knows that fear is driving the sell-off
so he invests heavily.
when everyone else is running away,
It's a bold move.
but it pays off.
It saves Geico.
And it cements Warren's reputation as a fearless investor.
A contrarian who can see value where others see only risk.
And then, there's this newspaper war in Buffalo.
The Evening News versus the Courier Express.
Warren buys the Evening News.
And he's not afraid to fight.
He's aggressive,
He
competitive,
understands the newspaper business.
and he's willing to do what it takes to win.
Even if it means a long, drawn-out battle.
And the unions are a big factor in all of this.
Yeah, it's a complex situation.
But Warren, he navigates it masterfully,
And in the end, the Courier Express folds.
leaving Warren's paper as the dominant force in Buffalo.
Another victory.
So we've talked about his business dealings, his investment philosophy, but what about his family?
His kids.
Yeah, he has this interesting approach to their finances
He gives them Berkshire stock.
without a lot of instruction,
He figures they're smart enough to figure it out,
which is, classic Warren.
trusting in their abilities.
And then there's this story about his son Howie and the farm.
where Howie's pay is tied to his weight.
It's so quirky,
But it also shows how analytical Warren is.
even in his personal life.
He applies those business principles everywhere.
And then there's Mrs. B,
Rose Blumkin,
the founder of Nebraska Furniture Mart.
an incredible entrepreneur.
Warren admires her immensely,
He buys her company,
and she has a little bit of seller's remorse afterward.
even though she honors the deal.
It's a touching detail.
It shows how much she loved her business.
But it also speaks to Warren's ability to identify and acquire those exceptional companies.
Led by exceptional people.
So we're getting into the later stages of his career,
Yeah.
and we have to talk about Salomon Brothers.
The scandal.
Warren steps in as chairman.
To clean up the mess.
He's the only one who can restore trust.
His reputation for integrity is unmatched.
And he compares the previous management to people sucking their thumbs.
While the company was imploding.
That's a great analogy.
And it shows his frustration with their inaction.
He also talks about the potential job losses if Salomon fails.
He's thinking about the employees, not just the bottom line.
It's a side of him that people don't always see.
But it's definitely there.
And then we have his investment in PetroChina.
A rare foray into foreign stocks.
But it pays off handsomely.
And it shows that he's still willing to adapt, to find value wherever it may be.
And the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting is becoming this huge event.
People from all over the world come to hear him speak.
He's a global icon.
And the question of succession is starting to come up.
Who will take over when Warren is gone?
It's the big question hanging over Berkshire.
And then, of course, the 2008 financial crisis.
Warren's warning about derivatives comes back to haunt everyone.
Those financial weapons of mass destruction.
He was right all along.
And he uses the crisis to make some strategic investments.
In distressed assets.
He's not afraid to buy when everyone else is selling.
It's a masterclass in value investing.
So we've covered a lot of ground today.
A lot of ground.
From Warren's childhood in Omaha to the global financial crisis.
And I think we've learned a lot about what makes him tick.
His unique personality, his investment philosophy, his unwavering principles.
And I think there are a lot of lessons here for all of us.
Not just about investing, but about life.
About thinking for yourself. About staying calm under pressure.
About having the courage of your convictions.
And about building a life that's aligned with your values.
Right. His concept of the inner scorecard,
Judging yourself by your own standards.
not by what others think. It's a powerful idea.
And it's something we can all strive for.
So I'll leave you with this thought.
Okay, I'm listening.
How did all these seemingly random experiences in Warren's life,
The good, the bad, the quirky,
combined with his personality, with the historical events he lived through?
to create this incredible success story.
Now, what about your own life?
Yeah, what about our own experiences?
What seemingly small details might be shaping your future?
In ways we can't even imagine.
It's something to think about.
Food for thought.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
Until then,
Keep learning
keep exploring.
and keep diving deep.
Deep, deep, deep.
All right. Take care.
See.
Bye.
Bye.